This is James for our Calamity Jane stream. I am flying solo tonight. Eric will join us at our regular Calamity Jane time, Calamity Jane channel next week. So I am going to man the ship on my own and kind of just do a little more of a test anyway, because I haven't really gone solo and done the stream on my own. But Eric and I kind of discussed it, and you know what, let's just experiment. Let me just try to do something tonight and see if it works. And for all I know, it's gonna all blow up in my face, but whatever. Let's see what we can do. So for tonight's stream, I'm going to be working on a Mitchell scene. So as you can see here, I have Mitchell assets ready to go, but I'm going to jump into our file that we're working on. And it really doesn't need Mitchell's face all that much. It just needs him turning on a light switch. So I'm just going to be referring to pretty much his jacket color and his hand color. And I probably will do what I would call like a gray boxing for the light switch itself, just to have something in place. And I might just do a color pass or design pass on this whole wall and everything else later. But let me see where we end up with tonight. So as I go, I will kind of try to talk out loud what I am doing. So in this case, I'm going to set up the background first. And so in Flash, sometimes I like to work with grouped objects, where I can actually make an object like this, and it'll be kind of not actual paint, but I can actually manipulate the whole thing and move it around. Sometimes it makes it easier instead of like, for example, when I break it, if I'm going to break this object, it'll turn all these little dots. I'm not sure if you see on the screen or not, but and then when you try to manipulate stuff, it'll start to actually let you warp stuff and kind of tweak stuff a little bit differently. So in this case, I am just going to be drawing in object mode to kind of set up our light switch. Let's see, there's the back panel, and I will kind of ghost it a little bit and kind of get a feel for putting in the actual light switch itself. So let me go ahead and try to do that here. And again, this is kind of temporary looking stuff. I will probably try to make this final art later on as we go, but I'm not as concerned about the light switch design right now. I actually am more interested, mainly because I'm just being a animator. I just want to animate Mitchell's hand flicking the light switch on and off. So let's see here. I will now animate the switch itself, and we'll make this into a kind of color. So even with colors, I'm kind of being pretty liberal with it right now. I'm just kind of throwing stuff where I can with it. And I'll make this a little bit lighter, so I'll highlight it, change the color palette here, and kind of push it just a little bit lighter to help bring the eye to it. There we go. And yeah, I do want to kind of rotate a little bit, so I'll probably do something along these lines. And already, I shouldn't even be spending this much time with it. I already have the basics that I need for animating this, but now I'm kind of getting in the weeds a little bit. And this happens sometimes where I kind of get lost in doing some kind of designing stuff. So, but yeah, there we go. That's the switch for up. And we will now flip it to down. And I'm actually going to just cheat it and just kind of do this to flip it down. Yeah, so that works. It works for now for all of our intents and purposes here. And now I'm going to go ahead and ghost this so we have it as a reference point. And now I'm going to go ahead and start animating Mitchell's hand. So for that, I am going to just go ahead and grab some of his assets here, or at least the actual color palette. So I'll sample that, make it a little paint splotch, do the same thing with his hand, paint splotch, These are already grouped, so now I can actually cut them from Mitchell's file, and then I'll just use my layer 1 as a reference layer to do sample colors. Now let's keep it aside here. I'll lock up the layer, but now I can actually start animating Mitchell's hand and his jacket. So let's see. I will go ahead and make the sleeve. Now, if you notice here, now that I've drawn different strokes and different gestural stuff here, now everything's kind of become a group. Now I kind of want to go into more painterly mode, so I'm actually going to break all this down into paint. And I'm going to also turn off my object drawing mode, so I can just kind of just paint and kind of just be a little more freewheeling with what I'm going to be doing here tonight. Now I'm going to just shape his hand, his arm, to have something that I can actually kind of push around and animate his hand flicking up and down. So let's see how this goes. And with this, so underneath this blue line I have this animatic here. It's really loose. I don't really need to, I'm not beholden to making it look exactly like the under drawing here. Just enough to give me a reference point so I can actually have just get a hint of what I want to do with the scene. And with that being said, for the arm, I think we're in good shape. I'll go ahead and let's see, I'm going to reference this scene as scene 21. So it's usually, at least for me, I like to kind of get in the habit of getting into a naming convention for setting up my scenes. So in this case, we're in Act 2, so I'll put in A2, scene 21, and then I'll just underscore with whatever I want to call this asset. So this will be Mitchell Arm 1. Sometimes it'll turn into library spaghetti if you kind of name things willy-nilly all the time. At least for me, this is a way to kind of organize my library and search for stuff if I need it. But even with me saying this, I don't always practice what I preach, and if you look in my library, I have a lot of things that are inconsistent. But ideally, that's what I always kind of try to shoot for. Next thing I'm going to do is right here we have this little anchor point. I'm actually going to rotate it back this way so I can actually rotate his arm like this. So if you don't do that, if you have the anchor point in the middle like this after you make your asset, when you rotate, it rotates the wrong way, not where it naturally works for a human. So I will now go back to that. And now I will reference this color splotch. And now let's make the hand. Now the hand here is really blobby. I'm not going to make it blobby. I'm actually going to have some fun with it. How I would want the actual final art to look like. So something like along these lines. Let me just look at this silhouette here. That's already looking better than that blobby thing that I have, monstrosity that I have there. So I'll think about the finger joints a little bit. And I'm not going to be I'm not here to be perfectly anatomically correct for finger digits, but just enough to give the sense for the viewer that, yeah, this is a hand and it's trying to manipulate a light switch. Now, normally, if we look at the model, and this is something I would probably talk to Eric about too, but I do have them with 5 fingers. But in animation, you'll see in a lot of shows, like some people were, some animation and productions will go to 3 fingers or 4 fingers. And I actually default to going to 4 fingers a lot, but I'm trying not to for humanoid characters. I actually want to use 5 fingers if I can. I know it's a weird, it's kind of a weird penchant that we kind of do, but so I'm going to give a hint of it right here. There are going to be 4 fingers now with that little divot that I plan to put there in the shape. Alright, so I think we got the first drawing pretty much done. Let me turn off my storyboard real quick just to kind of, so I don't get distracted here, and let me look at it here this way. Alright, so that's down, so we have that down. So this post is down. And while I'm at it, I will now make this an asset for the library as well. A2 scene, what was it? It was scene 21. Let me cancel out real quick just to make sure. Yeah, scene 21. A2 scene 21 Mitchell, and it looks like, according to this timeline, this is the second drawing I'm going to be doing for it. I actually went in reverse. I'm going to make the first drawing here next. So I'm going to call this Mitchell Hand 02. And I will now put the pivot in the right spot for him as well. Let's see. For fun, I will adjust him a little bit to kind of look like he's actually interacting with that light switch. The other thing I'm going to try to do here is this is actually turned off still, so let me turn that on. Alright. We'll kind of shrink this in a little bit. Because I noticed that there's like, if I undo this, I'll undo real quick. It felt like there's a little bit of a tangent thing kind of going on here with this hand and a couple little lines going here and there. So all I'm doing here is I'm kind of giving the viewer less tension for that particular line. I actually just push it over. That way you can actually see the shape of the hand and the fingers there, versus where it kind of gets bled. It starts to bleed together with one line going this way and another line going that way. That's more of a kind of a feel thing. That's just something I wanted to do, and that's why the light switch is that way. So the next thing now is I'm ready now for flipping it on again. So let's see. I have this asset here. Let me look at it again. So that's down. While I'm doing that, I'm going to adjust this hand to kind of actually go off the stage so we don't see any seams. And now we're going to go back up. And for this, I actually might, so this hand is out. And for this, I'm actually going to kind of skew it up a little bit and stretch it a little bit. Well, I'm going to borrow hand 2 for a second here. Let me see what I can get away with. So I'm going to rotate it a little bit. It almost works, but I'm going to have to make a new drawing here a little bit. And also I want to do some subtle things with it. So in this case, though, there's plenty of good base drawing here that I can use. So I'm just going to right click on this, and I will go to duplicate symbol. And like I was saying before, I actually went in reverse order, but this is going to be my first hand 1 drawing. So there I go. I changed the naming. Everything else is the same, but now it's hand 1. So now, if I edit this hand 1, it will not affect hand 2, which is right here. So if they were the same symbol, obviously it's going to tweak them both. It's more of a kind of a Flash thing to kind of keep an eye on, or an Adobe Animate thing. I keep kind of falling back to Flash, where I first learned with this program. Alright, so hand 1, here we go. I'm going to kind of gently rotate his pinky just a little bit. I want to do a little bit of subtle animation here. So I'll rotate it up a little bit, kind of delicate. And you see here when I rotate it, it kind of breaks some stuff off, so I will just reattach stuff or just kind of put it back in again, fill in the gaps. The other thing I want to do is with him pushing up on this, well, lifting the switch up, I'm going to kind of push these 2 fingers, the finger and thumb that is, and tweak it upward a little bit. It's going to be really subtle, but something along those lines. I'll double check my seams here. There's a little bit of a gap there, so I'll fix that. The rest looks okay. And also, I'm missing his wrist. Now, I guess I could cheat it. I could just bring this up even further. Or I could actually draw in his wrist, but let's try that. There we go. I think that's working okay. I'm going to now clean up my work on the scene a little bit. Let's get rid of these paint splotches. We don't need them anymore. We can actually turn off the storyboards here one more time. Now let's just look at it as it is. There we go. Now according to the storyboards, he flicks it on and off quite a bit. He kind of goes a little bit crazy almost, like, why isn't it working? Why isn't it working? So we'll do the same thing. I'm tempted to want to do some subtle animation, which I'll just use with shape trees. I'm not going to actually bother drawing that much more because I have 2 base drawings, and that's going to be probably enough to get away with stuff. So, alright, so let's see here. So we actually went upward first, so it starts down. So I'll do the same thing. I'll respect. Let me turn off all the assets here, and let's look at what we got to work with. Here's the actual art, the actual storyboard. I'll do the same thing. I'll try to emulate that same type of thing here. So let's give that a shot. So I can kind of see underneath here. That's the high point. So let me just scoot these frames over a little bit. This doesn't need this particular layer on layer 6 is just the asset of the light switch. So I'm going to push this over a little bit to kind of match it. And then let's see. Actually, I got to flip these around a little bit. So let me do this. And let me do that. All right. Now in the right spot there, and raise it up. So we'll do that. Great. Now we go to the next scene. The next set of frames. It goes back down again. So we'll do the same. I'm just going to drag over from a blank area between the keyframes. You can just kind of do this. It's a kind of a cheat to just copy the same frames over. And you kind of do this across the board. I'm assuming everything else is going to be alternating, so we'll just do the same. I will grab that, grab this frame, same thing, and then just alternate back and forth. And one more round here. And it finally turns on, and this will be the last frame where he actually holds it like that. So let's watch this in real time real quick. Okay. There we go. We got the basics there. Now for me, sometimes I want to do a little bit more subtle stuff. Let's try that real quick. So we start from it being down. We flip it back up. Now I'm going to add a little bit extra smoothing to the final drawing here, to the up drawing. So what I'm going to do here is I will kind of just tweak both. We're kind of skewing it a little bit. And actually rotating this a little bit, just slightly. It's really subtle. And then I'll right click and use classic tween for that. Oh sure, why not? I'll just ignore that for right now. There's a little more of a subtle movement now. See, I don't know if I actually don't mind the herky jerky nature of it, so I may actually leave that out. I mean, it's an option. Or the other thing I could do, this is where it kind of gets fun. You can actually, I might actually just overshoot this and actually have it kind of snap to it. Let me try that real quick. Yeah, that actually feels better. Yeah. So, in other words, now we'll overreact again on this frame, have it overshoot just a bit. Let's watch now. Yeah, that feels better. It's not much, but it's enough to, make it kind of more, at least for me, a little more interesting for a build up to him when he goes frantic with turning it on. Click, 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 because he's, this has happened to him before plenty of times at the prickly pear, where he's trying to turn on this stupid sign and it's not working. So I want to kind of emphasize his loss of patience as he's trying to turn it on. All right, I think we're in good shape for that for tonight. I think we'll call this good for our stream tonight. Yeah, again, I'm flying solo, so it's just more of an experiment tonight to kind of just hang out and do a little bit of a quick scene, and we will resume next week at our same usual time, 6:30 Monday next week on our same Calamity Chain channel, same time. We're on Patreon. I'm not nearly as good at this goodbye stuff as Eric is. He's much more professional sounding than I am. I'm just kind of flying by the seat of my pants. But yeah, we will catch up with you all later. Take care.